As if the Lian Li LanCool family didn't have enough members, the LanCool 217 has just joined the lineup. But this isn't just another airflow-centric PC case. Lian Li is adding a bit of style to the mix. But even with the extra flair, can it live up to the LanCool legacy? Well, we're gonna find out right here, right now on Robeytech. Well, Lian Li has done it again. The company has released a new case in the LanCool lineup with a name that is very similar to pre-existing cases. They have the LanCool 215, the LanCool 216, and now the LanCool 217. What happened to LanCool models 4 through 5 and 8 through 14? Who knows? What we do know is that we're going to be looking at the LanCool 217 today, and this mid-tower case brings some massive options to table for builders, including support for motherboards we don't typically see, flexible PSU mounting, and it has real wood. I know at least two of you and IKEA are excited about that. So we're going to talk about all the options the LanCool 217 offers, show off some thermal data, and give some of our considerations if you're looking to use this as your next PC case. And I'll say this up front, if you're considering one already, it's not a bad choice. As we get started, we want to thank Lian Li for sending over the LanCool 217 for us to review. Well, let's get to know this a bit better, starting with the price and models. At the time of this video, the LanCool 217 is available in two different colors, black for around $120 or white for around $125. Both cases, as we already mentioned, have wood accents that complement the color of the case. But let's be honest, those accents are about as thick as my New England accent after a trip out east. In other words, they're not very thick. When we start looking at comparable cases, the LanCool 217 has price competition from cases like the Fractal Pop Air, the Montech King 95, and the Asus A21. All great cases too, but you should check out a review of the Gear Seekers edition of the Montech King 95 right here. As far as physical dimensions go, the LanCool 217 is very similar in size to the Antec C7. Now when it comes to weight, the LanCool 217 weighs in at around 23 pounds or 10.5 kilograms. As for I/O and controls, the LanCool 217 keeps things standard with two USB Type-A ports, one USB Type-C port, a combined audio jack, and two power buttons, which is not standard. But their locations are also not standard. Instead of being on the side or instead of being on the top, the second power button is at the top of the case, and there's also another power button on the side of the case. It's not really a complaint, but I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. We'd also like you to press that like, subscribe, and notification bell both here at Robeytech and Robeytech Live, and you won't get any complaints from us if you did. Now, moving inside of the case is just as simple thanks to the LanCool 217's toolless design. Lian Li does a really good job of telegraphing where to tug on panels to remove them. The one exception though is the lower PSU shroud. That panel is held in by a thumb screw, so don't go tugging on it without removing the screw. Now once inside, the LanCool 217 can support mini ITX, micro ATX, and ATX motherboards, but Lian Li doesn't stop there. Lian Li says that the LanCool 217 can not only support eATX motherboards with a width of up to 280 millimeters, but it also supports larger workstation motherboards with a maximum width of up to 330 millimeters. Apparently workstation people love wood. And that is one girthy motherboard. It's also worth noting that the LanCool 217 can also support Back Connect, BTF, Project Zero style motherboards, but that support is limited to ATX and micro ATX size board, given that those are kind of the only boards that do it right now. Now moving on to GPU support, the LanCool 217 supports GPU with a max length of 380 millimeters. That's plenty of room for your larger RTX 50 series and Radeon RX 9000 series GPUs. And don't worry, if you're looking at using an ARC B series GPU inside of here, you are also golden. Now the LanCool 217 has a built-in GPU support bracket with adjustable height and two different horizontal positions. So if you have like a heftier GPU that's a touch longer than most, the LanCool 217 has options to support. That said, if you want to vertically mount your GPU, the PCI expansion slots can be rotated, and Lian Li provides standoffs for vertical risers. Now moving on to support for fans and cooling, you can do 3 140s or 120s at the case front, 2 140s or 3 120s at the case top, 3 120s at the case bottom, and 1 120 or 140 at the case rear. Now one thing worth pointing out here is that the LanCool 217 comes with 5 fans pre-installed. Now as for fan specs, the two 170mm fans push a colossal amount of air at 142.6 CFM and 3.3 mm H2O static pressure, though I'm not sure what kind of radiator these would actually fit on. Now the rear fan is just as impressive with its 81.3 CFM airflow rating and 2.4 mm H2O static pressure. As for the two 120mm reverse blade fans at the case bottom, they're a bit more meager with a max airflow of 66.9 CFM and a static pressure of 1.6 mm H2O. But hey, for a case at this price to be tricked out with all these fans, those bottom fans aren't terrible. Now before we move on, what's also interesting here is that the LanCool 217 has some flexibility with fan mounting at the case front and case bottom. Our fans come pre-installed in what Lian Li calls GPU mode, with the 170mm fans sitting lower to feed the GPU. The second mode, or CPU mode, pushes the fans all the way to the top of the front, moving the brackets to the bottom, which is actually a pretty neat trick. As for bottom fans, you can mount these either above or below the PSU shroud. If you mount them below, you are limited to 2 fans at this location, and you'll need to remove the storage drive bays below. As if we don't remove them anyways, but you do you boo. As for radiator support, the LanCool 217 lists support for top-mounted radiators either up to 280 or 360. In theory, you could fit a 280 or 360 in the front, but this feels a bit like you're fighting for space here, and I don't know if we think it's worth it. What's super handy up top here is that the LanCool 217 has a removable bracket to help with the easy installation of either radiator or fans. And when we say removable bracket, we mean that you can remove the significant portion of the case top. If you want to use a CPU air cooler, the LanCool 217 has 180mm of clearance inside the main chamber. This means that air coolers like the Noctua NHD15G2 or the Cooler Master MA824 Stealth will fit inside perfectly. And with those 270mm fans up front, an air cooler is going to be eating good in this PC case. Moving on to storage space, the LanCool 217 can support up to 6 drives, if you choose to keep the 2 dual 3.5-inch hard drive bays and the 2 SSD trays inside. As for PSU support, the LanCool 217 does something pretty awesome here. It allows PSUs to be mounted sideways, giving cables a straight shot up the back cavity for cable management. This is actually perfect for PSUs like the Lian Li Edge, which we absolutely love to see. Now to do this, you'll need to remove the small lower panel from the motherboard side of the case and remove the plate covering the mounting points. You can then shift this over to the back side of the case, covering the standard PSU mounting location. This will give you access to the back side of your PSU to plug in the included power cable extension. Now speaking of cable extensions, depending on the cable length of your PSU of choice, you may need extra cable extensions to reach the locations, like in this build where we barely had enough room to connect the 16-pin. As for supported sizes in this rotated orientation, the LanCool 217 supports PSUs with a length of 180mm. Now if you wanted to install a PSU the good old-fashioned way, the case will support PSUs with a length of up to 220mm. Rounding out our tour of the inside, we have a unified front panel connections as well as a USB 3, 20 gigabit USB-C, and HD audio. There's also a fan hub inside with connections for up to 6 fans and 4 5-volt ARGB connections, not to be confused with 12-volt RGB, which we'll talk about here in a minute. What isn't going to be confusing though is our performance data. So let's take a look at the thermal performance we gathered for the LanCool 217. As a reminder, the specs for our test bench are on the screen here, so pause if you want to read them. They are the same parts we use in all of our PC case tests every single time. So on to the data, starting with our AIO test. While at idle, the LanCool 217 averaged just over 25 degrees Celsius. This puts it in line with cases like the Montech King 95 and the Antec C8. Not a bad start, but idle performance is kind of a baseline. Now moving on to our CPU load test, the LanCool 217 slips into a much different crowd at the wrong side of our charts. With an average close to 76 degrees Celsius, the LanCool 217 fell in with the Cooler Master TD500 and the Asus ProArt PA602. These are not bad cases, but much warmer under load than we'd actually like to see. As for gaming, the LanCool 217 remembered its purpose in life and moved back to the cooler end of our charts with an average smack in between 42 and 43 degrees Celsius. The LanCool 217's performance was nearly identical to the Be Quiet Lightbase 600LX and the Fractal North XL glass. Now, since the LanCool 217 is an airflow-focused case with massive intake potential, we have to talk about the performance with an air cooler. At idle, the LanCool 217 fought for attention in a competitive segment of our charts with an average of around 25 degrees Celsius. What's really interesting here is that the LanCool 217 was neck and neck with the LanCool 207. I guess the family resemblance is strong here, but isn't strong under full CPU load. In our CPU load test, the air-cooled LanCool 217 struggled to keep up with the heat. With an average of over 84 degrees Celsius, the LanCool 217 took the crown from the loser, the Antec P20, as our warmest tested case. Yikes. All is not glum here for the LanCool 217. In gaming, it averaged below 45 degrees Celsius, muscling its way past the G400A and grabbing third position just behind the redesigned NZXT H5 Flow and the Asus TUF Gaming GT302. Could our air cooler have been more successful in CPU mode? Possibly, but even with one fan dropping it low like it's your PC's birthday, I don't think our CPU is starved for air at any point. As for GPU temperatures, at idle, the LanCool 217 held our test GPU at a thermal average of 27 degrees Celsius on our AIO test bench. These thermals put it in line with cases like the NZXT H6 Flow and the Fractal Meshify 3. Under GPU load in our gaming benchmarks, the LanCool 217 kept things cool with an average temperature of just below 61 degrees Celsius. Here, the LanCool 217 hung out with cases like the Geometric Future Model 5 and the Asus ProArt PA602. At idle under load, the LanCool 217 grabbed second place in both tests with an average temperature of 26 degrees while idle and just under 60 degrees Celsius under full load. All in all, not too shabby. Now, with thermals tested and a build or two completed, would we recommend the LanCool 217 as your next PC case? Overall, the LanCool 217 lives up to the LanCool legacy. It's a well-built case that it's roomy, it provides a ton of airflow, it's super straightforward to build inside of, and it gives PC builders a ton of options for different types of builds. Whether that's using back-connect motherboards, side-oriented PSUs, internal storage, or vertical GPU mount, there's a lot this case can accommodate. Not only that, there's plenty of space for cable management, an included GPU support bracket, rubber grommets covering the main cableways, and a good amount of depth in back for connections if you're using a back connect motherboard. Although there are going to be a couple considerations that we're going to point out. First off, let's talk about the wood accents. Some people love it, some people hate it. Honestly, we're kind of split on this one. On one hand, it's cool to see something different that sets the 217 apart from the rest of the LanCool family. For those members of our team who like to touch grass every now and then, whatever that means, a little bit of nature on the desktop is kind of a plus. On the other hand, there were a couple members of the Robeytech team who were expressing concerns about how durable and long-lasting wood accents like this might be. Now, let's be honest, this wasn't 100% directed at Lian Li. They were kind of saying the same thing about other wood accent cases. But again, this is more of a personal taste thing, but it's worth figuring out where you stand on the style. Now, the second consideration is this. Building inside of the LanCool 217 is fairly straightforward, but even seasoned builders should read the manual and make sure to read it carefully, especially if you're looking at changing the orientation of your PSU, swapping fan locations, or plugging ARGB into the included hub. For the last one, the pictures we saw in the manual showed 12-volt RGB headers on the hub, but cautioned against using 12-volt connections. Now, a closer look actually confirmed the hub only supported 5-volt connections. We knew this by looking at it, but a beginner builder may not. We did bring this up to Lian Li for them to correct, and we'll see if the corrections actually happen. Finally, let's talk about the $120 price tag. While value is different for everyone, we think the LanCool 217 sits in a really accessible spot. Considering that it's kitted out with most of the fans you'll need for the build, it has a ton of features right out of the box, and the quality of construction is really good. Okay, $120 just feels right where it should be. When we look at the whole thing, the word accessible really describes the LanCool 217 really well. It offers access to options for different motherboard sizes and styles, access to cableways, and accessibility to the case I/O, and more. Overall, we think the LanCool 217 is actually a pretty solid case if you need a highly versatile PC case with more than a few options, but we want to know what you think. What do you think about the massive fans? What about workstation motherboard support? And what do you think about the wood accents? Let us know in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, go ahead and slap that subscribe button with that like button and ring the notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here on Robeytech. And if you want to continue the conversation, talk about the questions we ask in these videos, or ask questions of your own, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. It's an amazing place to talk to other tech and PC enthusiasts about these very same things. And hey, you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us at Robeytech on all of your favorite social media platforms. And if you made it this far, I want to say a huge thank you for sticking with me through this entire video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.